Assalamu alaikum, peace and blessings. Welcome to Modest Beauty Podcast. I am Khalida, the model, your host. And today's guest is Dr. Kayla Renee Wheeler. And I'm going to read her profile. She is an assistant professor at critical ethnic and Black studies and the Africana Studies Program Director at Xavier University in Cincinnati, Ohio. Dr. Wheeler earned her PhD in religious studies with a concentration in Islam in America from the University of Iowa in 2017. She is an expert in contemporary Islam and Muslim fashion. Currently, she is writing a book entitled Fashioning Black Islam, which provides a history of Black Muslim fashion in the United States from 1930s to the present, which it's going to be a nice thing, and I can't wait till it comes out, and we will maybe touch on it a little bit. Dr. Wheeler is also the curator of the award-winning Black Islam syllabus. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Wheeler. Welcome to Modest Beauty Podcast. Thank you for joining us on today's podcast.
Wa alaikum assalam. Thank you so much for having me.
It's exciting and it's an honor to have you. So I'm probably just going to dive right in and ask a few questions. Please insert anything if you don't find a question that you is not here, then go ahead and insert, inshallah. Bismillah. So first question is, what does modest fashion mean to you?
For me, I think it is both a religious practice, but it's also a deeply rooted cultural practice. So I try in my research and in my personal life, not just have one definition of modesty. How you define modesty is going to be based on your age, your race, your ethnicity, and as I'm finding more, do my research, location. So what it means to be a modest Muslima in Cincinnati, Ohio, looks very different than it does in Senegal or Puerto Rico or Atlanta, all over. So for me, it's really important that when we talk about modesty, have a very diverse understanding of it and recognize that when you're talking about Islamic modesty, it's not just what you wear, but it's how you comport yourself, how you interact with other people. And that, of course, can show up in your fashion statement. But for me, probably how you act in your life is a bit more important than how you dress.
How you looking in your life?
How you look. I've seen a whole bunch of hijabis smoking and drinking alcohol, fully covered.
Or not fully covered.
Yeah, so
headdress and skin showing and doing that.
Yeah, and so there's, I can see how that would be something that people would do. So making sure that we understand it's diverse.
That's good. I like that answer because I actually have another guest coming on soon, and she's a model. And I feel sometimes we are misrepresented as Muslim fashion models, or as, we're misrepresented as fashion icons as well, only because, like you said, a lot of times people are not showing and representing what modest fashion really is, or Islamic Muslim fashion really is, and representing us as a whole, like you said, not just, oh, you have a scarf on your head and you're out there doing something else that does not fit under the umbrella of Muslim woman or Muslim fashion, so to say. What was it about Muslim fashion or modest fashion that influenced you for you to be so interested in African Americans and their impact on fashion here in the United States?
I guess for me, one of my main influences was YouTube. So I have been studying Muslim fashion since 2012, and it started as something really personal. My mother was a beautician, so growing up, I was not allowed to do my hair. She did my hair. She had all these styles for me. So I had like China doll bangs, like layer things, all of these she would practice on me. And so when I went away to college with my relaxed hair, I decided I was going to do my own stuff. I was going to go natural. That was really easy to do in the States. Then I moved to the UK, where where I lived was primarily a South Asian and Caribbean neighborhood that was further spaced out. So it wasn't so easy to get to hair stores. So I started to wear a lot more head wraps, and I only knew a few styles from my mother. So I went online, I found Muslima to Muslima, who are like the OGs for Muslim fashion. And I just was like, wow, this can literally be a way I can tell the story of my community. It's pointing out that all of these fashion trends that we're seeing now in the 2020s and the 2010s really did start with Black Muslimas in the US and the Caribbean and African continent, and has spread out. And for me, it's important to tell like the stories of how did that come to be? Why is the turban so fashionable? Layering a dress on top of jeans, something that is cool and chic instead of frumpy. That's Black Muslim women, and we don't really hear those stories, but we see kind of images of that in the media all the time.
And also people who are adapting, because that's probably one of the questions I have way down the line, how we influence others and then they go and take it, or they are saying it's theirs, but it's fine because I feel that we are represented, or we're looked at so highly, that our fashions are so high and beautiful, and that our designs and our creativity are so awesome. I mean, just use the word amazing, awesome, that people want to steal it if you want it, borrow it if you want it, or if they want to, I feel like it's not represented the way it started, like you said, and who brought it out and really made it beautiful.
Yeah, and for me, I never see appropriation as a compliment. Islam allows for multiple cultural practices as long as it doesn't go against the religion. And so I think sometimes the idea of like, well, we're all Muslim, we're all different, allows for some of like picking and choosing. And cultural exchange can be very useful. But when you are not honoring the founders, when you are not making space for the people who come after the founders, that becomes the problem. And you're seeing that now with mainstream fashion industries embrace of modest fashion. And it's not just Muslim women who are influencing this, it's also Jewish women, Mormon women, Jehovah's Witnesses, but you're not seeing that represented in all of the models, or there might just be space for one Black model at the time and then 10 to 20 brown models. The same thing when it comes to fashion designers. If we look at who gets the big deals, with Macy's with Verona collection, it's very rarely Black Muslim women, despite them creating the foundation for modest fashion in the US and beyond.
I actually reached out to her, and because I wanted to be one of the representations of Verona, right? And I was actually told that I had to have at least 10,000 followers in order for me to be even considered, on Instagram, to be even considered to model for them, or for them to even take my application. At that point, I was really, really upset, but it didn't stop me. I was really upset because I felt like this is an American Muslim, who should represent all and really like give homage to the trailblazers, the pioneers. I mean, it wasn't. So I mean, and I touched on that because it still kind of bothers me, because what you just said about it's not, we as Muslim models are not represented, and especially in the Islamic fashion and some of the brands. But let me ask you this, is that how you were influenced to become an Islamic scholar, or the Muslim fashion scholar? You studied Muslim fashion studies, right? You're a scholar in Muslim fashion studies?
Yeah, I don't think it was so much coming from a place of like erasure. My world has always been Blackness. So when I think of like anything Black is the default. So it was just to tell the stories of women in my community, women that I've always seen. And then through doing this, I realized that, well, there weren't that many people who were telling these stories and getting similar platforms as influencers or some other scholars. So it kind of became a responsibility for me to like make sure that I'm telling these stories so people know the history, but also give people their flowers while they're still alive. Like if you're going to talk about Muslim fashion in the United States, you have to mention the Nation of Islam, even if you have different theological beliefs. Like you have to understand that when the United States was thinking about what Islam was, some of their first images of that came from the Nation of Islam. Yep. They created this entire infrastructure, Absolutely. Like clothing factories, clothing stores, and that continued on under Imam Muhammad and under Minister Farrakhan. And so even if you are a part of the nation or are a part of the Imam Muhammad community, they're still in Black neighborhoods. You can still go to their stores. You still see the influence in Black popular culture in general.
So what you've learned so far through your research about the African-American Muslim designers who are the trailblazers and the pioneers, will you think these trailblazers and pioneers be recognized and given credit for their influence from here on? I know you are writing a book. There was another book, I believe, Muslim Fashion. I'm not sure if you want to touch on this book as well. There's also another book out. There are a few books out, but do you think that the trailblazers who started, like you said, the Nation of Islam and others, do you think they will be given credit or homage? I mean, pay homage to what?
I think they're already given credit by Black Muslims. I think sometimes there's this desire to like be accepted by the mainstream or be accepted by like non-Black Muslims. I don't think that's really ever going to happen as much as some people want it to. And I don't know if that's something that we necessarily want, because once you go mainstream, then everybody can take your stuff and it can sometimes lose its meaning. So look at hip hop as an example of that. Like,
yeah. Oh.
Like, I mean,
oh yeah.
all these white suburbanites listening to the music, but then also producing it. So if you go to a Black masjid, people are going to know who Queen's Creations is. Everybody knows who she is. Everybody in the Nation of Islam knows who Carmen Muhammad is. So we don't have to necessarily beg people to pay attention. It's clear. But I think it's important every once in a while to remind people, like, you know, hey, there were people before Halima. And like, I mean, you don't even have to look at Black marriage. Iman existed.
Right.
And I think it's okay to do that. For me, it's also important to point out disparities. Why we don't see more people in the mainstream. So Project Runway is a perfect example of that. All of the Muslim first on Project Runway have been by Black women. But if you look at the trajectories of these Black women, like Ayanna Ife, she had to do a GoFundMe to raise funds to go to Italy to study. Why is someone so talented who, like, honestly, in my opinion, she should have won. Her clothes were much more creative than Kintaro's, as much as I love him. Why is she not being given the resources? So for me, I think we should focus less on the attention and more about how do we get people resources? How do we close some of these disparity gaps that prevent them from being more whites we know within Black communities and Muslim communities that might not have as much access to Black people, but could benefit from the style.
I was going to say, to benefit from the style. You have a great point. Wow, that I never thought about it that way. And that's a great answer, because you never, unless it's brought to your attention, you just think, no, we need to be recognized and it needs to be out there. But no, I mean, it's deeper than that. And there are other issues behind just being recognized and saying that, hey, you know, we are here, we are existing, we made this, and there are other issues that need to be addressed, and resources is one of them, and we don't have access to that. I mean, even the recent one, Modesty, what is her, Hijabi Pop, her too. No resources. They're doing it all by themselves.
Yeah, and doing amazing work that you will find copied on Instagram days later. with no like citations if this is where I got it from.
Right.
Yeah.
Not even a mention. I mean, like I kind of was inspired by that. Not oh, here's the dress, here's the idea I got it from. You don't even have to go that far, but at least I was inspired by, because all of us are inspired somehow. I mean, whatever you do, you're inspired somehow, and it probably is from a previous someone that you ran into, that you spoke to, that you saw, that you read, something you read. There's always inspiration somehow, somewhere. Absolutely. Did you want to comment on a little bit on this book, Muslim Fashion, by Raina Lewis? I actually just got it in the mail, so I felt that it was I only read the acknowledgement, so I couldn't get into it just yet. I had so many other things to do, but if not, I won't. It's up to you.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a great book for people who are interested in academic study of Muslim fashion.
Right.
Sometimes it's a bit heavy and a bit dry, but
she's out of the UK, right?
She is, and she's trained in fashion studies. So I'm trained in Islamic studies, and I do fashion. So we take somewhat different perspectives, and the book is primarily focused on the UK. She talks about the US a bit. But one thing that I think is missing, she talks about like shopping, like the commerce behind it, what it's like to be a Muslim woman in the fashion industry, not just as a model, but doing design, working in retail. We oftentimes just think of fashion as like you're either the designer or the model, but there's production that goes into this. There's consumption, the marketing aspects. And she gets into all of that. One thing that she doesn't touch on that much, which I hope like my book, inshallah, will do this, is how central race is to our understanding of fashion. I think part of that has to do with she's focusing on the United Kingdom, where there is like a racial majority there. Most Muslims in the UK are South Asian. But here in the US, like this is one of the most diverse like local ummas in the world. So there is no one super majority.
No,
so
right.
Black, Asian, and Arab kind of each like 30%, and then others. But you still kind of see like this cultural dominance of Arab cultural expressions of Islam, and then South Asian expressions. And so those are kind of seen as the standard of beauty, of authentic Islam, that everybody else is supposed to
adopt, right, and support, right,
Yeah. And so that's part of the reason I would argue you don't see that many Black Muslim models. Like we get one at a time. It's because when Americans think about Islam, and even Muslim Americans themselves, they're usually like, that's a brown religion. So we need brown people to represent that. Yeah. That might be the case in some countries where there is a super majority, but I wouldn't even say that about the UK, because they have such a rich Black African and Black Caribbean Muslim community there, partly because they were colonial superpowers. But you definitely cannot say that about the United States, where the first Muslims literally were Africans, enslaved Africans at that. So I think it's a good book. I would recommend people check it out. I would also recommend people check out Pious Fashion by Liz Bukar. Hers is really cool because she focuses on non-Arab countries. So she focuses on Indonesia. Anybody who's interested in Muslim fashion needs to be focusing on Indonesia, like not just because that's where that's the largest Muslim country, but also because Indonesia is so important to the textile industry. When you think about like African wax prints, that is kind of a funny story about colonialism. They were created by the Dutch, who wanted to sell batiks back to Indonesians, and they didn't like it. So they ended up selling them to West Africans who already had similar tie-dyeing practices. So a lot of the cool like pastel layering techniques that were really popular in the early 2000s, that comes from Indonesia. She also talks about Iran and Turkey. So it's a really cool book, and I think it's a bit more accessible. Her writing style is like really fun. She opens the book with a devil wears Prada quote. So it's really
That's very apropos for that. Devil Wears Prada. We all know about that. That's a good one. I'm going to get that book. Pious. You said Pious.
Pious Fashion.
Pious Fashion. Okay.
It's out of Harvard University. It's a great book for like going to the beach,
Right.
but also for a reading circle. And
Okay.
it's something I use in the classroom too. So it's really great.
So I know you kind of touched on the next question that I have. So, but you are currently writing a book called Fashioning Black Islam, Race, Gender, and Belonging to the Ummah. Your research shows that, I guess, what we should expect to learn from our history of Black fashion beginning in the 1930s. Could you just, I know it's not out yet, and I know you don't want to put too much out there, so, 2 or 3 words would be fine. Can you tell us a little bit about what your book is going to be about, besides just, Black fashioning, Black Islam, but give us a little hint?
Yeah, so it's kind of, for me, what I wanted to do is when we talk about Muslim fashion, we usually start in the present, and we assume that no Muslim before like the 2000s were fashionable. A lot of times, just out of nowhere. And usually the starting point when people talk about Muslim fashion is 9/11.
Oh,
it's like
yeah.
A whole bunch of people started to wear hijabs because they wanted to show that Islam was like democratic.
Wait, not just hijab, but turban, because they were trying to shift away because they didn't want to look like, quote unquote, I guess, the way some people say Muslims should look like, or are looking.
Yeah,
so also
they didn't want to look like the stereotypical Muslim,
right? The stereotypical Muslim, right?
They didn't want to be read as Muslim in the first place.
That's
and
right.
So there you get in that is like, what does it mean to look Muslim?
Right.
Turbans are very common. If you go to a Black masjid, you're gonna find as many turbans as you are gonna find like anything else.
Right.
So I wanted to talk about, like, when we think about Muslim fashion, we shouldn't always think of it as being reactionary, something that came about as a response to Islamophobia. Or another date that people usually bring up is 1965, when we have the Immigration Reform Act, and you have an increase of Muslim immigrants. Black Muslims, for me, I argue, started really getting into fashion as a way to create these new racialized religious identities for themselves. So starting with the Nation of Islam, seen as a way to create these new Black identities, creating this new understanding of Blackness that wasn't rooted in oppression, that was a way to connect back to ancestral ties that they thought they had lost. Now, people have different understandings of what those ancestral ties are, whether it's to like North Africa or West Africa and Central Africa, where the vast majority of us are probably more realistically from. So I wanted to talk about that, but also talk about fashion as being a really important space for Black Muslim women to create Islamic knowledge, transmit that Islamic knowledge to other generations, and really is being central to Black self-determination. So many Black women, even those who didn't come out of the Nation of Islam and the Darul movement, or who were Ahmadiyas, or always started off as, they were able to make a profit off of their fashion and really continue to build Black communities, keep Black dollars in Black communities. So it's talking about, when we talk about fashion, it's not just about pretty clothes. It's about politics, it's about economics, it's about history. And it's a way to connect to the African diaspora, not just in the Americas, but also back to the African continent.
And because I guess just fashion is because it's right there in your eyes, right there in your face, you can see it. That's a great point to start and to have other dialogue from just that. I like that idea. When do you think your book will be finished?
Oh my gosh. So the goal is to have, inshallah, like a full draft of it by the end of the year to then send to the press. So it probably won't be published until like 2023 or 2024, but I have some articles in the pipeline and everything.
Yeah, going, all right. We're expecting that soon. I'm thinking it's still in the making.
Oh, I mean, it's kind of like I'm starting to work on chapter 3. So unfortunately, COVID, like, it's influenced the fashion industry been fluent at academics too, so I haven't been able to go to fashion shows in person, which is so central to my research. And a lot of fashion shows have been canceled. And that's really unfortunate for Black Muslim fashion shows because many of them also serve as fundraisers for the community.
Yeah, that's true. Wow. So it's going to be halted or, just paused a little bit. But yeah, wow. Well, I'm not holding you to 2023 either or 2024. Whenever you can possibly get it out, I can't wait to read it. It's going to be phenomenal actually to read because I'm so interested in, like you said, the 1930s, how it went back. It's not 2012, it's not 9/11, it's not 2017. It started way back. If you can, how do you think we can continue to influence and give recognition to African American Muslim designers and fashion influences today? How do you think we can still make a mark and continue to show that we are trailblazers, we are the pioneers, we continue to be that way, and also share? How do we make our mark?
I think one of the easiest things we can do, I know some people don't want to do it, is actually support Black fashion designers. Like I'm guilty of shopping at Modanisa because I can get like an abaya for $10. Okay, well, like first of all, if we're just thinking about the ethics of any piece of clothing costing $10, that means that people who made those clothes
we should be running
probably
anyway.
making 10 cents.
Right. We should be running from that anyway.
We should. It's not good for the environment. It's not good for workers. And if you're interested in like in an ethical Islamic framework, probably would not fall within that to support fast fashion. So supporting Black Muslim designers, that's going to mean being willing to spend a bit more money. So if you want something from like Shapur Couture or Queen's Fashion, you're going to spend like over $60 or $70, but you're going to have something that's really well made. Original. No one's going to have it. It's going to last you like 30 or 40 years.
Can I interject real quick? I have something from Lubna Muhammad, and
I love her.
It's right. And I'm going to say way back. It's a long time. It wasn't 5 years. It hasn't been 10 years. It's been about 20 years, and a lot of these designers who you are mentioning, they were ahead of their time.
Yeah. And professionally trained. We forget about it. Like Lubna went to Parsons. Like that is the school for fashion design. So these are women who actually know what they're doing, who are very skilled in their craft, who are continually improving, and you pay for the quality. You get what you pay for. You are supporting Black businesses, and you are supporting Black aesthetic culture. I think one of the downsides of social media is we're starting to see like a flattening of regional differences. You can follow an influencer from Chicago or Atlanta or New York, and you're like, ooh, that's cute. Let me get that. You kind of ignore like your own cultural like.
And I'm guilty of that.
Yeah, I mean, and it's cool. Like, but Chicago fashion kind of is the way it is because it's cold there all the time, so they need to layer. Atlanta fashion is the way it is because it's kind of always sunny there. Like maybe it gets down to 50 degrees, so they don't have to have as many layers.
Right.
Yeah, if you're going to do Philadelphia fashion, if you just have a Black abaya, you're missing out on the accessories, on the jewelry, on the handbags, on like the details of the abaya or the niqab. So I think supporting Black businesses, but also if you are a business owner, a non-Black business owner, or a non-Black influencer, passing the mic every once in a while, and not just during Ramadan or Black History Month, being very intentional about including Black Muslims in every aspect of your company, not just models, but who is in charge of your marketing, because that's going to influence the design, how people are styled, who are your stylists. So Cummings, been out there for doing styling for at least 10 years, has worked at New York Fashion Week. Just invest in the Black community without thinking you need to speak for the Black community would be my recommendation.
And you know what I just thought of while you were saying that as well? How about collaborating? If because somebody, like you said, Martinisa, and there's another major Verona
or East of Essence.
Yeah, maybe that's the one. There are these bigger brands that could collab with some of these African American businesses or Black businesses, and specifically designers who are on their level. They're maybe manufacturing things and getting them done wholesale, or but they are worthy of collaboration. They are worthy to work with you. They are worthy to be, like you said, don't just speak for them, bring them in. I am supporting this designer. I am supporting this Black business,
Yeah. So Modenisa, I think, is a good example of somebody who could afford to do that. So they had a line of hijabs with Halima Aden, and she was the face of it. And they were really beautiful. But if you look at their retailer shops, the vast majority of them are non-Black American and non-continental African. Part of that has to do with Modenisa is a Turkish company, they're international, but they're based in Turkey. East Essence they're actually their CEOs are in California, but they're based in India. That's where
India. Okay.
It's India. It's because the factories there are less regulated. And then Shuker is actually British, but
they were in Britain, but I thought weren't they in Syria? Did they start in Syria?
No, I think they actually started in England, and they have a satellite store in Jordan.
Okay, that's it. Right, Jordan.
Yeah. So they have a standing store there. So do that, but also sometimes not only do you need to pass the mic, you also need to step aside. So if you are invited to be on a panel, or if you are invited to meet with some big corporation like Macy's or ASIS, ask them how many Black people are going to be on the
attending. Right. Will be in attendance,
and right. They say none or one, have a list ready of people that they can invite instead of you. And so that's something I try to do as a scholar. If I am the only Black person in the room, most times I'm not going to be there. But if I am going to go there, I'm going to call that out because it's a problem in academia, the problem in the fashion industry, and now we're seeing even as a problem in the museum industry. We're starting to recognize Muslim fashion. There was a big exhibit at the De Young a few years ago. I saw it when it came to New York City in 2020 at the Cooper Hewitt. I think they had 2 Black designers there.
One was Nzinga Knight, I think. Nzinga Knight was one. And
then they had Carmen Muhammad.
Yes, that's right.
Yes. They did not have anyone from Nigeria.
But look how many representations they had in just the 2.
Yes. And nobody from the African continent.
Right.
Nigeria is one of the most populous Muslim countries in the world. Yep. No Nigerian.
And Senegal too.
No Senegalese. Nothing. Right. They didn't even have that. I was shocked to see how little Indonesian and Pakistani fashion they had. It was definitely focused on the Middle East. So making sure that you call that out. And if people don't have Black models, if they don't have Black designers, don't shop there.
That's going to be kind of hard, Kayla. Dr. Kayla, I should say, Dr. Wheeler. That's going to be kind of hard.
It is. I mean, there's no ethical consumption under capitalism. So I'm not going to front, this came from Rainbow, this stuff.
Right.
It's like Rainbow. But this dress came from a Black Dutch guy who ethically sourced the material. Right. This was $3. This was 50 pounds.
Fashion Nova.
I mean, it's beautiful, mashallah. So I mean, it's a privilege to not do fast fashion.
Right.
For real. Some people, you go have a dashiki that's $10 and made from a Chinese factory because that's all you can afford. But maybe just buy one of those. Do you really need 10 in different colors? Or could you save up your money and support a continental African? Or could you learn, if you have the time and skill, how to sew and repurpose? Social media is great for that. There are a lot of TikTok accounts. If you're a millennial, you probably still on YouTube. There are a lot of YouTube channels that you can follow that will give you these skills. And you'll see how this is a part of the Black Muslim tradition. Many women didn't go to Parsons in these schools. They learned how to sew because they did MGT classes, or they watched their mothers and aunties sew and learn. And then that could be your side hustle.
I like that. And these were all great. I hope everyone listened to all the ways that we can support and continue supporting Black businesses and making a mark on the industry as well. And I really feel that is important. And you made like numerous, it's not just one suggestion, you made numerous suggestions, you know, and ways that you can do it. And it doesn't have to hit your pocket, you know, or your pocketbook. And like you said, if you do go and get the more expensive one, it'll last you for 30 years. Hint. So therefore, you don't have to worry about it having 10 of them.
And no one else will have it. I've never seen anyone else with this dress on. That's
right. That is right. And I love it when I go to places and I only have one of something, because you are conscious of, especially the Islamic or Muslim fashion vendors, that you wonder, is somebody else going to have this dress on? Is somebody else going to have the same color, you know, or this outfit? But when you hit up the iconic designers and these fashion influencers, they need to be recognized and they need to be supported. So that's excellent. So I have two more questions, and we can ask this one too, but how can our viewers and listeners follow your research and purchase your book when it does get published? Do you have a website, or would you like to have people be able to send you information that they may have if you know, I don't know, there's so many people out there that we're not going to always get in touch with the main people who have the main information.
Yeah, and I can email you if you want to put that up later. So I have a Twitter. It's private just because school is about to start and I don't want my students to follow me. Absolutely. So it's at KRW18. Okay. You can email me. If you Google Kayla Renee Wheeler, I'm the first person that pops up. If you have information or want to be interviewed for the book, my email is wheelerk8 at xavier.edu. And I also have a digital archive of Black Muslim fashion. I haven't updated it in a few months, but it's called the Kimar Archives, .tumblr.com. And so I post some research that I've done, some articles I've posted, but also I spend a lot of time in like libraries and museums, and so I'll post that stuff as well.
Okay, good. Yeah, because I'm not the only one that's going to want to follow, especially after the podcast, that your research, because it's tapping into something, like you said, that we have not heard of, we have not really looked into, and those of us who have and know the background have not had that extensive research either. So that'd be wonderful to be able to follow your research. Last question: what pearls of wisdom about our fashion history can you leave our listeners and viewers with today? What was the one thing that you found very interesting in your research that would have never been revealed unless we have done the in-depth research that you have? What would you like to leave our listeners and viewers with today?
So I'm humbled by how you described that about me. I mean, and this isn't me having imposter syndrome or not feeling myself, but there are so many people who are doing this research. If there's one thing that I have learned is talk to your elders. They have so many stories and they are so willing to talk to you, share. They want to share. My research wouldn't be possible without like the aunties. Like I talk to younger people, but it's really like the women who are 70 and 80 and even 90 years old who like have this wealth of information. And many of them, and I'm not saying this offensively, they're pack rats. They have like all of this stuff. Like you can go to somebody's attic and they'll pull out, yeah, I have like an original program. Or here is a sketch that I did when I was in high school. We have all of these treasures. We don't have to go to other communities, and you don't even have to be an academic to do this work. I am telling one story, but there are millions of stories that need to be told about Black Muslims, not just about Black Muslim fashion, but about the entire Black Muslim experience. And we can do that on our own. We have the resources available with our elders, as well as our youth and everybody in between. So really be engaged with your own community and really, really understand that it's important to give these women their flowers while they're still alive. Lubna Muhammad is still designing. Carmen Muhammad still goes to Torino Fashion Week and wins. Gwen Dewan is still here doing amazing pieces. I just saw her at the Steel Nectar fashion show. You can support these women now and give them their flowers now. That's when it matters the most. But then also support younger designers that are coming up. So Ayane Faye, she's there. Renee Hill, I mean, she's not a young designer. She's been in the game for a while, but they're there. And if you're not interested in the African French, you don't have to be. There's so much diversity with Black Muslim fashion. You can find somebody that will match your taste level.
So many, like you said, there's just not one, and everybody's doing. So we have a whole lot of brands that we shop. You may think Gap, Old Navy and Banana Republic, they all have the same stuff, but they all have their own flavor. They all have their own design. They all have their own, like you said, they put their own spin on it. And each of these ladies that you did mention, among others, it may all be skirts or dresses, but they have their own fashion. And it's not all African prints, like you said. It's not all Indonesian prints. It's not all, whatever the print is, not all that. You can go out looking a professional at a corporate America in a suit that one of these ladies designed. You know, I think you made a great point talking to the elders and getting information, because they are still here. Once they pass, then of course it's going to be a little bit harder, but they do have the stories to tell. And you can even start, like you said, with the fashion designers that you know, but even people in your own home who were the attendees. You know, maybe they weren't in the back of the backstage, they were there, they saw. And those stories correlate with the stories who are with the people in the background and the people who were behind the scenes. I thank you so much for joining us today. And I thank you for sharing your wisdom and your research and just talking with us and making us aware of the influences that we as African Americans have, and that we should be looking back towards and using those as influences as well. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day. You're welcome.